So I recently finished a game called The Longest Journey. It's an old point and click adventure game, and something I've been roaming and I wanted to do for some time because keep hearing that it was good and very important. Uh, and I'm not sure I agree, but a lot of it will have with age. I don't think it aged very well because it's very early 3D. So the characters are 3D. I would say kind of like Grim Fandango, a little step above the first Tomb Raiders, but you still run around in fixed camera angles like in Resident Evil. So you are in a 3D world that's been rendered to a 2D image, and the characters run around in that, and it doesn't always works and give a good effect. Um, and a lot of the things that you're supposed to interact with, like a hole or a door, can be somewhat difficult to spot. Um, but let me get back to the story of the game. The game was quite long, as in it felt that it dragged a lot. Uh, it has a lot of story, both backstory that it wants to explain, and then the current story that it wants to go through. And it also drags because the game is huge, as in you go a lot of places. In point and click games, they're usually called screens, so you go from one screen to another. That's kind of like how you move. And this game has a lot of screens. I think it must have had like 4 times the amount of screens that Curse of Monkey Island or another point and click games that I am familiar with. Maybe even more than 4 times. There's a lot of screens, and most of them have like 1 or 2 things you interact with. So you kind of just go through the screen. It's like, you just go to get somewhere else. That is affected by the character's movement speed. And you play as a female called April Ryan. She can run, but even then, because she's also able to go into the picture, like in depth, go into the world, it takes a long time to move. In this game, so it felt draggy. And I'll admit up front, I was playing with a guide after the first chapter. The first chapter wasn't too bad, actually. It was just, it hit me when I had to end it. It goes, every chapter is kind of like a day. So everyone was like, okay, see you tomorrow. I have done the things that I needed for today, and I wanted to end the day, so I go to the character's room. There's a bed, and I try and use it, and she just goes, no, I don't want to make my bed. That frustrated me a bit, and I was like, how do I go to bed if I don't use the bed? How do I end the day? So you're supposed to talk to a character downstairs until they suggest that you watch TV, and that's one of the ways to end that day, and that was just too much for me. I said, okay, I'm going to finish this with a guide. I'm not going to finish it at all. One thing that struck me while I was playing, and I'm probably going to compare this a lot to Curse of Monkey Island, because that is a game that I like a lot, but also have a lot of experience with, and I think it does a lot of good things. It's point and click adventure, and I think they came out at roughly the same time, so it's not too mean. It's fair to compare. In The Longest Journey, you can't like accidentally solve a puzzle, or you can't halfway solve it without knowing what you're doing. For instance, you can't pick up things that you will use later before you know that you actually have to use it. For instance, there was a prize where I could win a crow from a guy. And it was really the only choice I could make, and I knew that I wanted the crow, but the character didn't do it. So I talked to the guy who has this 3 Cups game, and I win the crow, and he goes, okay, You said you win. What prize do you want? And instead of going the crow and then go to where I need the crow, I just go, oh, I'll have to think about it. And then I go to where I need the crow, find out that I need the crow, and then I go back and say, oh, I want the crow as my prize. And that makes sure that you can't stumble over anything, and you can't show up with the things you need by accident. And that makes sure that you have to play the game for the longest. That's why it feels draggy. Maybe the opposite, the extreme opposite, isn't that good as well. I think in the South Park game, what was called the Stick of Truth, I think it had some issues with that you could actually end up having solved quests before giving them. But that is, of course, the other side of player freedom. In South Park, you could like have beaten up all the kids, and then you go to meet Cartman, and he goes, "Oh, we have a quest for you to beat up these kids," and you have already done it. So you beat up some kids without understanding why. Maybe you don't always need that. But I think I'll prefer that to The Longest Journey, where everything is so locked, and you have to talk and find out what is the problem, and then you have to go and look for the items if you have spotted them. But you play as April Ryan, I think was she 18 something? She's a young female art student, and the story is an epic in proportion and a little bit also in length. The world is at stake. It's huge. It's big, and that is not my favorite kind of problems, because it just becomes too big to grasp. And say, wow, the whole world's ending. Okay. And that also means that whenever you meet someone and you need their help, and you go, oh, if you don't help me, the whole world's gonna end. And they'd be like, nah, but I need you to go fix this or fix that or give me something. I'm having personal problems or very insignificant problems. But there were also some big ones where you had to change the state of the world or the situation to move on. But it's weird whenever you meet someone that's like, oh, I need you to get my cat down from a tree when the world is ending. The people that you talk with talk very slowly, and I'm not sure if that is because they want to make sure that you get it. There's also subtitles, I think it's default, but there's a lot of pause, or there's a long pause with the periods and commas. I think I might read a little faster than average, but I was way done with the subtitles before they have spoken. And I think there was an option to skip, but you have to activate it because they warned you that you might miss information. And I didn't really want to skip the game because I want to get the story. I don't know if it's because it was at the time or the studio. It was made by Funcom. It was really interesting because I had enjoyed some of their games. So I don't know what it is. It's just maybe the voice actors they got. They were really emphasizing the words that they spoke, like I am doing now. That's how it felt. That always makes things feel draggy. That's the game feels long. That's what I'm going back to. So there are many screens. You move slowly. People talk slowly. Another thing that also makes The Longest Journey drag is there are a lot of. It takes a long time for a character, for an NPC, to go in and out of animations. Like there's a sailor that I remember you talked to. So he'll be sitting doing something with his blocky hands, you go over and talk to him, or you click talk, and then I think April says hello, and he looks up at so then he stops his looping animation, his idle, whatever he was doing. How's that guy coming? I think it's okay. So okay, where was I? I was just talking about an in and out animation of the NPC, right? The sailor who's sitting doing something with his blocky hands, and you talk to him, then he would stop that and slowly, like, sit up straight and look at you, but also take out his pipe. So every time, and then you could start asking him questions, and he would put down the pipe and go back to his little idle animation, or his loop, whatever you wanna call it. There was just a lot of that. It also had quite a bit of pixel hunting and like hidden corridors. So like there's some, I mean, whole doors that you need to go through can be obscured by either the angle or the color on the screen in the background. You can have very tiny objects that you need to pick up. That makes it difficult to find. And so that also means, I mean, of course I had the guide, as I mentioned, but overall that would mean you really have to pixel hunt on the screen. I can easily see why this would be a good experience, because when it was released, how people can say this is a good game. Like the story and the size of the story, the experience is satisfying, and if you like play a few hours every day, you play it the weekend or however it was back in 1997, you will get some progress and it will feel nice, and I can't really remember anything being like this. What I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to spoil it, but you go a lot of places, you get a lot of different environments, and you get a different types of puzzle. You get to need to think in different ways. Whereas in, for instance, Curse of Monkey Island is all pirate and somewhat pirate related. You changed it all up quite a bit in The Longest Journey, and I could, of course, from the tutorial see that it was 12 chapters, but if you played it and it came out and there was no internet, you didn't have any guides, this would be a long game and you would be invested in it, and you'd be like, wow, I'm going on a grand adventure, because you are doing that very little step by step. So I can see why it's good. I just don't think it passed the test of time that well. And another very obvious example of how this is not the best game to play today is that it's very poorly optimized. If you tap in and out, there's some flickering on the screen. Of course, it's 4:3. I can live with that, because I want to preserve, the artistry on screen, the artist vision. And so if the levels aren't made for widescreen, you don't want to pull them or cut them or whatever. So that's fine. But you also can't. I couldn't save on Windows 10 from Steam. I think they're all gone. Supposedly my neighbors all coming home now. That's great. I hope they had a fun day. What I was saying is, the game is poorly optimized. I was playing on Windows 10 on Steam, and every time I exited, it would just get stuck. I had a white square in the middle of the screen. I needed to go to the task manager and reboot, and maybe cancel the reboot when I could see that Steam was shut down. But sometimes I would just let the reboot continue and complete, because I think my monitor, some text were misaligned after I played the game. So you need to take that into account. It's really poorly optimized for that. They have cutscenes in the game, so that is where they would have a lot more 3D environment, but a 3D camera movement. and they would have completely different models than in-game, because of course the cutscene is a pre-rendered environment, whereas in-game is a live, dynamic environment. And yeah, you can say the game is old, but some of the cutscenes were just weird. This is where I kind of think there was a new studio or a studio's younger days, with people didn't really knew how to do it, or I mean maybe they were programmers and didn't study movies. What I'm trying to say is they had some weird, what you call cinematography or framing, or it would be zoomed in too much, so you couldn't read the action of the shot. Or maybe some of the models would just be really weird compared to the in-game models. There's a cutscene where you're being chased by a guy, and I had no idea who that guy was. He looked like nothing like the in-game thing, and he was obscured a little, and he went by so fast. That's a bit weird. Oh, hello. But that still adds to my impressive and respect, and saying, wow, you really went and made all this with the tools of the day. You weren't gonna be limited. They really told a grand epic tale. There was so much work with dialogue and the screens. Like, the world is big. You're going many places. So that's great. And supposedly the game was a success, so that's nice for its time. Unlike Monkey Island, never really. It was made some sleeper hits. This game apparently sold good enough when it released, so that's nice. I mean, one thing I can say is there's at least 2 sequels. What's in this called Longest Journey Dreamfall, and then there's Dreamfall Chapters. And I'm looking forward to playing the next game in the series, which I guess is the Longest Journey Dreamfall. So let that be a testament of the quality, saying I want more. This was slow, I used the tutorial, but I want more. So that's somewhat of a recommendation if you're not an action junkie and you can stand all the games. That was, I think that was pretty much all I had to say about The Longest Journey. Thank you for stopping by.